Hello Year 10. Today we are starting on trinomials. So today we're going to look at the monic trinomial, which means that the coefficient of the x squared is going to be a 1. We're not going to have any numbers in front of our x squared here. Now the word trinomial means that we're going to have 3 terms, and it usually looks like this form here. So a number in front of the x squared, then an x term, and then a constant term. So ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c could be any number, and they will change from question to question. The only special condition is that a cannot be equal to 0, because otherwise it would not be a quadratic if there was no x squared term. Now, as I just said, a monic quadratic trinomial occurs when the a equals 1, and it does not matter what values the b and the c take. So if we want to consider the monic trinomial x squared plus bx plus c, so all we're doing is saying that a is 1, so I'm leaving that off there. We want to find the factors of c, the factor pairs of c. We look at the factor pairs and find which factor pair equals a sum of b, and then that will help you to factorize it. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that in these examples. So example number 1, we want to factorize a squared plus 6a plus 8. In trinomial factorization, these are going to factorize into a double set of brackets like this. The pronumeral in my question is going to be at the front of each bracket, and we are looking for 2 numbers to put at the end of each bracket. Now, to work out what those 2 numbers are, the 2 numbers will multiply to give this number here on the end, the 8. So they need to multiply to give 8, and they need to add to give the 6. So those of you that did this last year, you may find that you know how to do this straight away and can put the numbers straight in. But if you're a little bit rusty and need to kind of start again from the beginning, what you need to do is start with the number 8. And you want to list off all the different things that can times to give 8. So for example, 1 and 8 multiply together to give 8, and also 2 and 4 multiply to give 8. They're the only options. So once I've worked out that little list, then I say, well, which one of those pairs is going to add to give a 6? 1 plus 8 makes 9, so that's not going to work. But 2 plus 4 makes 6, which means that these numbers here are the numbers I need to use to factorize. So they go in here, a plus 2 and a plus 4. Now the tricky part is that the numbers will not always be positive. Sometimes the numbers will be negative. So in example B, we are trying to factorize again. We have the pronumeral a, which will go at the front of each bracket, and we're looking for 2 numbers that times to give 5 and add to give the negative 6. So let's start with the 5. We want to find 2 things that times to give 5. There's only one option, the number 1 and the number 5. However, when we look at the negative 6, in order to get a negative number here, it means that at least one of my numbers has to be negative. Now, if only one of the numbers was negative, when I multiplied them together, I would get a negative answer here. So it actually means that both of my numbers need to be negative, a negative 1 and a negative 5. They would multiply to give a positive, but when I add them, minus 1, take away another 5, does make minus 6. So I need negative 1 and negative 5 to go in there. Okay, let's keep practicing. For C, our pronumeral this time is x, so let's put an x at the beginning of both of our brackets. We are looking for two numbers that times to give -8 and add to give a -2. This time, because the number on the end is negative, that tells you that only one of the numbers is going to be negative that I'm looking for. Okay, if they were both negative, it would make a positive, just like in B. So I need one negative number. Because the two numbers are going to add together and give me a negative result here, it means the bigger number is going to have to be negative. Okay, so there are things to keep in mind. So let's have a look at that number 8. The things that times to give 8 are 1 times by 8 and 2 times by 4. Okay, now remember I said in order to get those minus signs working, the larger number would have to be negative. So let's see which one of those options works. 1, just waiting for the bell, 1 take away 8 is -7. That's not right, it doesn't give me the -2 that I need. Let's try the second one. 2 take away 4, that makes -2. So those numbers work. So they are the numbers I put in the bracket. I have a +2 and I have a -4. It doesn't matter if you put the -4 first and then the +2 over there. The order is not important. Let's do D. This time Y is the pronumeral. The problem with D is, before we start trying to factorize, is that this trinomial has not been written in the correct order. We have got a y squared term, then a constant, and then a 3y. We don't want to do that. We want to write them in the right order. Y squared, then I want the 3y, and then the -4 needs to be down the end, just so it looks like what we're used to seeing. Then it's this -4 that we have to find two numbers to multiply to give -4. Well, numbers that times to give 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Now we have a minus sign there on that 4, which means that one of the numbers must be negative. But which one? The result has to be a +3. That means that the bigger number has to be positive for that to happen. So let's try putting negative signs on the smaller number. Now let's try to see which one works. -1 plus 4 would make 3. That works. -2 plus 2 would make 0. So that one wouldn't work. So we want to put a -1 and a +4 inside those brackets. Over the next page, question 2 says to factorize 2x squared minus 2x minus 12. Now we did say that today we were only doing monic trinomials, which means the fact that this question here has a 2 in front of it makes that non-monic. However, we could easily factorize a 2 out of each of those terms in order to make it back into a monic trinomial. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring a 2 at the front and divide that into each term. So 2x squared divided by 2 is x squared. -2 divided by 2 is -1, which is -x. And -12 divided by 2 is -6. Okay, so for the rest of my question here, that 2 is going to be sitting at the front. And I now want to factorize the trinomial that is in the brackets. It is going to go into 2 sets of brackets. And I'm going to be looking for a number that times us to give -6. Let's look at our options. Things that times to give 6 would be 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Now because it's a -6, I know I need one of the numbers to be negative. Because this number in here is a -1, I know the bigger number needs to be negative. So let's put a negative on that 6 and on the 3. Now, which one of those pairs works? 1 minus 6 is minus 5, so that doesn't work. But 2 minus 3 makes the negative 1 that I need. So I'm going to have x plus 2 and x minus 3 in those brackets. In question 3, we want to factorize, and hopefully that will mean that we'll be able to do some cancelling out. So on the top of that fraction, you can see a trinomial, x squared plus x minus 20. So to factorize that trinomial, we're looking for two numbers that times to give minus 20. So let's look for things that times to give 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3 doesn't work, but 4 times 5 would work. So there's 3 different options. Because it's a negative number, we know we need a negative number in there. We know that the two numbers have to add to give a positive 1, so the bigger number needs to be positive. So I'm going to put the negative sign on the smaller number. So now, which one of those pairs is going to give me a positive 1 for my answer? Well, it's negative 4 plus 5 would give me a positive 1. So factorizing the top, I would get x take away 4 and x plus 5 all over x take away 4. I can't do anything to factorize the bottom. Now you can see that there is an x take away 4 on the top and the bottom of that fraction. I can cancel all of that off with that. And all that is left is the x plus 5, which you don't need to write in brackets any longer. Okay, one more question, question 4. We are multiplying these two big fractions together here, but to do that we need to factorize everything that we can so that hopefully some things will cancel off. So the top of the first fraction is a trinomial. So we're looking for two numbers that times to give negative 10 and add to give a plus 3. Now hopefully the more you practice, you will get to the point where you will not need to write down these factor pairs anymore. Okay, so try to get to that stage, but if you need to, then keep writing them down. So things that times to give negative 10 and adds to give a 3 would be a positive 5 and a negative 2. So that would be x plus 5 and x take away 2 to factorize the top of the first fraction. The bottom of the first fraction, you can see an x squared take away 4. Two terms, and we can definitely see a squared in there. This is going to be a difference of two squares, factorization. So to factorize that, it will also go to two brackets where we square root the x squared to get x at the beginning of each bracket, and we square root the 4 to get 2 at the end of each bracket. One will be a plus sign and one will be a minus sign. Then we have our multiplication sign. The second fraction has a trinomial on the top, so we are looking for two numbers that times to give minus 2 and add to give the negative 1. So that would be x, it would be a negative 2 and a plus 1 that would work for that. So x take away 2 and an x plus 1 over. On the bottom, it's only two terms, but nothing is squared in there. So we could take out a common factor here. 2 would be the common factor, and that would leave me with x plus 10 divided by 2 is 5, close bracket. Okay, now that everything is factorized, we can cancel as long as we can cancel off whole brackets at a time. So the x plus 5 here could cancel the x plus 5 on the bottom of that fraction. X minus 2 and x minus 2, remember it's anywhere top and bottom. They can be in the same fraction or in different fractions as long as one's on the top and one's on the bottom. Okay, so that's it. I've cancelled as much as I can cancel. So now I just need to push everything together for my answer. So on the top, all that is left is the x minus 2 bracket and the x plus 1 bracket. On the bottom, I have the number 2 and the x plus 2 bracket. And that is the most simplified answer.